This video is brought to you by the EA Creator Network. Hi everyone and welcome to my channel. A special warm welcome if you're brand new here. My name's KiwiSimsKate. Kiwi because I'm from New Zealand, Sims because I love the Sims, and Kate because that's my name. So welcome back to another speed build today, and I'm very excited to bring you my very first build from the Businesses and Hobbies expansion pack, and it is a doozy. I had such a great time building this, trying the new style of architecture that we got in Nordhaven, and really trying to fit this build into the world around it. As per usual, I hopped onto my dear friend Pinterest to start me off with a little bit of inspiration, as well as just taking a leaf out of some of the surrounding builds in the world as well, because the world itself is beautiful, although a little empty in terms of liveliness. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. Let's talk about the build. I wanted to create a build that had a mixture of businesses and residential spaces in it, because of course that is one of the big features that we now are able to do with this expansion pack. So you can now allocate different spaces on your lot to be public, residential, or employees only, which means that there's a real range of things, especially if you have a lot of other packs, that you can create with this new EP. All sorts of types of businesses, hobby spaces, meetup places, and then mix those in with residential lots. The build I've created has in fact 2 businesses and 2 residential spaces, 2 separate residential spaces. So I think I haven't actually used it in gameplay, but I have play tested the build to see that it works. So the build works, but what I don't think you'll be able to do is use it like a residential rental that we used in the For Rent expansion pack. So what I would have loved to have been able to do is allocate the 2 residential apartments that are above these businesses as residential rentals, so that I could play a family that lives in one of the apartments and the game would just automatically move in another family into the other residential apartment. Fairly certain that you actually can't do that with a new pack. Like, that would take on, I think that's maybe, I don't know, too hard for the game itself to, like, it might cause more issues than actual gameplay ability. I don't know why that restriction is in place, but it is. So probably what you're going to have to do if you want to use this in gameplay is just focus on one of the residential apartments and one of the businesses downstairs. So the businesses I've included with this build is a little cafe, which I'm building first in this blue section on the ground floor, and then the 2 sections that are going on the left of this are a pottery studio and a pottery / art gallery retail space, and they're actually connected inside, even though they both have their own kind of front entrances to them. And it's the first time I've been really playing around with the build and buy items of this new pack. It is so cool. This pack, the items, I'm really excited about. I just want to build all the time with these items. I love the mixture of more modern, kind of Scandi minimalist items with these really European, more traditional, older style architecture. I think there's a really cool mix in here, and it allows you to build more than one type of building, which is always exciting. I like to get more than one style especially when we get an expansion pack, because you imagine that, we should be getting with expansion packs, there should be some kind of quantity, right, as well as quality. So yeah, I was really excited to see that not only did we get this beautiful old style of architecture, we also got some modern stuff as well. The windows and doors, for example, are probably some of my favorites that we now have in game. I really love these new doors here that look like they're kind of the front of a business, and they are unlike anything we have already, which I always appreciate. Sometimes I feel like we get some items that are just like too similar to what we already have in the game, but with this pack I think that there's a lot of really unique items that have added quite a lot more to the game. The other thing I will mention is that this build is entirely base game and businesses and hobbies only. So you only need those two parts of the game, and of course the base game is now free for everyone to use. In order to download this build and have it to be fully functional and for everything to show up. So I always, when a new pack comes out, I always try and do at least one build with base game and the new pack only, so that it's a lot more accessible for people. And it's also a nice challenge. Sometimes I get a little bit of building decision fatigue because I have all the packs. There's a lot of content now. I was saying this just recently in my live stream when we were doing a little bit of building over there on Twitch, that it can be really tricky to build using every single pack, because there's just so many decisions to make. There's so much content, and that's not even with any of my custom content in as well. So it's a little refreshing to just simplify the game a little bit. Base game, we've had a bunch of new content over the years added in through various sort of promotions and special events and SDX drops, etc. So the base game has a lot more than what it had to begin with. And then if you're pairing it with something like an expansion pack, you're going to get quite a lot of additional content as well. So it was refreshing and a lot easier and faster. I will say though, in light of that, yes, it was faster to build this than it might normally. But this build, if you haven't already noticed from the title, has been split into two parts. Now, I put a poll up over on in one of my YouTube posts and also over on my Instagram story to ask people, what would you rather watch? Look, I've edited this build. I've taken out all the kind of pauses and extra pieces that don't really matter, but the build was still coming in at a whopping 52 minutes of footage, and that's not including the intro, not including the screenshots, not including the outro. So I asked my community, what would you rather watch on my speed build YouTube channel? Do you want one really, really long video that's nearly an hour long, or would you like me to split it into two? And there was actually, for a while, it was pretty close. It was quite even. And in the end, though, my community members who voted for splitting it into one, that was the more popular option. So hence why this is part one of two parts. So the way I've split it is that because I created the exterior first and then I finished the businesses on the ground floor, that's going to be in this first part. So the exterior of the whole lot, and then also the pottery, studio, gallery, and cafe, that's all in this part. And then the second video that I will release shortly will be just the furnishing of the residential parts of the build. So the the family apartment, and then the 2-story kind of think of it as a single apartment. So keep an eye out for that video as well. I will link it into this video if I remember once it's released, and then vice versa, so that if you only come across one of them, you can find the second one easily. But they'll both be up on my YouTube channel. As I said in the start of the video, I used Pinterest images as reference, and I actually used 3 separate Pinterest posts for the 3 different parts of this building, because I wanted them to be a little bit mismatched. I wanted them to feel like they still would exist in the same world, which I think I've achieved. I'm quite happy with this build. I really had fun with the style, but I wanted them to be quite distinct buildings from each other. So I used 3 separate reference images, and I don't really like picking favorites, but I think the left one is my favorite. So if you've got a favorite of the 3 sections of the build, do let me know down in the comments. I always find it really fascinating how different people, gravitate towards different kinds of styles. They're all quite similar, but they've got different color schemes, and some, I like the left one because it does look like an older building, but there's a little bit of kind of maybe modern renovation in there, like the more modern windows and doors. So yeah, I'm fascinated. What section of the 3 buildings is your favorite? Let me know in the comments. While you're down there as well, if you are enjoying this video, or if you enjoy my channel in general, it really helps to give it a thumbs up. And if you're not already subscribed, you can do so by hitting the subscribe button and the bell to be notified when my new videos come out. I also recently streamed live on YouTube for the first time ever. I do stream twice a week, but I do it over on Twitch at the moment. So this was a bit of a test to see, firstly, just how it goes. I was kind of interested in general in how the experience of streaming on YouTube was. It was really simple. It was great. It worked well. There were no issues. Yeah, I didn't have any problems streaming to YouTube. But obviously my community's not set up on YouTube for streaming. But the other reason why I wanted to do it was because I was testing out some issues I've been having with streaming. So I wanted to see if using a different platform would help. Turns out it gave me no concrete answers, but that's okay. I will keep troubleshooting and hopefully find the cause of those soon. This is the interior of the Pottery studio. So I love this space. I love how kind of simple I've kept it. I know that in The Sims 4, when it comes to gameplay, the more cluttered your build is, the trickier it can be for gameplay. Sims kind of routing issues can get a little screwed up. And yeah, sometimes it's just not conducive to a smooth gameplay experience. I love the look of a cluttered place, something that looks really lived in or used. I think in terms of the aesthetic, I love looking at that stuff. But when it comes to gameplay, if you play a lot, those kinds of scenarios can be quite tricky, because you start to get Sims that just are unable to walk places, or they get stuck with other Sims, and it can be a real nightmare and just really frustrating if you're in the middle of gameplay. So I did try to keep it more simple than cluttered, particularly because these are businesses. So it's more likely that there will be more Sims in this small area at the same time, rather than just a house. So hopefully I've kept it simple enough that it works. I did playtest this, so I had a Sim move into this lot, open up both of the businesses, and play around with it. And customers did arrive, they used the items, they seemed to be able to get around fine, they had access to the bathrooms, and my sim also play tested both of the residential sections. So I made a couple of small adjustments while I did that. So the uploaded version that will be up on the gallery is the play tested version. So you shouldn't have any issues with any of that. Fingers crossed. I certainly didn't anyway when I was playtesting, or I made sure I fixed anything that didn't work. The other thing I did down here in the pottery studio is I expanded it a little bit. Once I started placing items down, I realized I was going to need a little bit more room, and I'd forgotten to factor in a space for the staff. I forgot about that you can have employee only sections. So I added a little bump out on the side of the build and placed the bathrooms for the pottery and gallery section in the gallery side, because I felt like your Sims probably need a little bit more space in the pottery making studio rather than the retail section. I also didn't place any pottery for sale on the pottery shelving, and that was quite a conscious decision. I figure if you're gonna play with this build, like, it looks cool in screenshots to show you what it looks like with items on the shelves, but if you download this with a bunch of pottery for sale already and you're a game player and you wanted to create the pottery yourself to sell, I'm kind of taking that away from you by doing that. So of course you can go into debug and live edit and build mode and pull out a bunch of pottery if you like, but I figured if you want to make pottery and sell it, you probably want to do exactly that. So I left all those shelves free. I think I'm going to maybe make a couple of little gameplay sort of shorts or reels as well, just for those who are maybe not quite so sure how the gameplay works in this EP, and maybe they're not sure if they're going to enjoy the gameplay of it. So I might do a couple of shorts on sort of how to run a pottery business or how to run a retail business, for example, how the mechanics of it works and what your sim needs to do in order for it to function properly, that kind of thing. Of course, that's all as long as I get time to do that. But that's my plan anyway. Over here, I'm moving on to the second section of the pottery space, and this is an art retail space. So I figured it doesn't need to be exclusive to pottery. Maybe the sim that owns this business is just an artist in general, and maybe they specialize in pottery, but they do a bunch of other art. The residential space that's above this business does have an easel on the balcony. So I figure they're kind of just an artistic family in general, and they probably don't only make pottery, but pottery's sort of the main thing. Or you can just use the space completely for pottery. It's completely up to you. A few of these things in here are from the new pack. So all of the shelving it sort of acts like automatic retail surfaces. So I figured this out while I was playtesting it. If your sim creates something on the pottery wheel and you drag that item onto one of these surfaces in this side of the space, it will automatically be marked for sale. You don't need to click on it and mark it for sale or anything. These surfaces will only work for things on sale, so they're not decorative shelving. If I'm explaining that right, I hope I'm explaining that right. So you can't just drag You couldn't, for example, put these shelves into your home just to display items, I think. Although I could have that wrong. You might be able to do that. Actually, I haven't tested that. But at least if you've marked a space as a retail space or a business, when you drag items into these shelving units, they'll automatically be marked for sale. And when you open your business, you will get customers come in and just purchase them off the shelf. In this section as well are where the bathrooms are, and then there's a little chill out area, seating area in the corner. I wasn't quite sure what to put there. As I said, I wanted to leave this space as uncluttered as possible, but kind of stylish and modern. This business is all about art and creative space and ideas. So I wanted it to reflect a bit more of a modern aesthetic on the interior, more modern on the interior than the exterior. This here's the little bump out I was talking about earlier as well, which is just a really small 3x3 employee space. It's got somewhere to sit. It's got a small bar fridge. It's got a coffee machine, and just a bit of art and kind of, non-functional items to brighten the space up a little bit as well. There's an employee space in here, and then there's also an employee space over in the cafe, which you'll see. They're very similar. They've just got a slightly different vibe. Like, this is a bit more moody and I guess industrial with the brick. It suits the Pottery studio vibe, and then the one in the cafe is just a bit more bright and it's a little bit more plain. I did try and add a bit of colour, but this one does look a little, in my opinion, nicer, or at least cooler, like artists work here as opposed to just anybody. I guess the cafe one is a bit more of a neutral space. At this point as well, I decided to add on a patio, a kind of enclosed patio for the cafe. I was worried about the space, which I'm, in hindsight, really glad I was worried about, because I think if I had left the cafe as is, there would have not been very much space at all for Sims to sit down. You'd maybe get 3-4 customers in there at a time without it feeling too crowded. So this open area felt right to add it. I'm not sure it's going to be the most comfortable space to sit when the town is covered in snow, because I did see that Nordhavn has quite a varied climate. In the summer it's nice and warm, but then in the winter I think it is, like, when you look at the map icon, there's snowy mountains in the distance. So I haven't played in the world in winter yet, but I imagine it does snow. And I think I did hear something about, snow effects if you've got seasons. So if you don't have seasons, it won't matter. It'll just be nice all the time. But if you do have seasons, this world, I believe, does get quite cold in the winter. So maybe not the most pleasant place to sit out there in the winter time. But there is some spaces inside for seating, a couple of chairs and tables, and then a nice cozy little sofa spot. You'll see me just add burglar alarms. I just realized that I should probably add those. I heard that businesses can also get burgled, so I don't want that to happen. I don't want it to happen to the residential spaces either. So I added this. The residential space that's above the cafe has its entry, that the front door I just placed there is inside the cafe, whereas the residential space that's above the pottery studio and gallery has its own front door on the curbside. So it's not so, I only really needed one burglar alarm in this section with the cafe, but the other one I added a burglar alarm for the residential door that is accessible from the street and into the pottery studio as well. Lucky I did that, because while I was in stream earlier this week and we were doing our Businesses and Hobbies gameplay, which is where I built a small cat cafe, and we've been doing a kind of little mini let's play series running a cat cafe. Our residential above that business, we nearly got robbed. Luckily we had an alarm though, so it scared Robin Banks off. But I was quite taken aback, because Robin Banks had also been a customer at our cat cafe earlier that week. So I was shooketh. I thought that was very rude of her to try and rob us after she'd had a lovely experience at our cat cafe. Anyway, I get distracted. Here is me finishing the inside of the cafe. This is the little staff section, employee section through the kitchen that I was explaining about earlier. It's just got a small love seat. It also has, oh no, I didn't put a fridge in this one, but I put a microwave so they can make little microwave meals. A couple of aprons as well. I just dotted aprons pretty much everywhere. I love that item. I'm so glad we got that in one of the base game updates. And then the pride flag up there to bring a bit of colour and a bit of inclusivity to this space. I figure they've got probably a bunch of students or something that work here, like university students work at the cafe. So it's a real nice cozy hangout space for students and locals alike. And this little sofa section, I was a little bit inspired by Central Perk and Friends, but the idea, in fact, I think came from Mr. Kiwi, my husband. I was struggling to figure out what I wanted to put in that corner. I nearly put, you'll see I had a set of table and chairs to begin with, and then I was thinking about putting in counters with some stools, and then he suggested, why don't you have a little sofa space? I thought, oh, that's a good idea. So thanks, Mr. Kiwi. I really like how that little space turned out, and we've got plenty of other table and chair areas anyway. Whether or not Sims will get coffee and food and sit on the love seats, I'm not sure, but I think it looks good anyway, which is, part of the part of winning. And then I moved back to the exterior. So I think I'm pretty much finished the finishing of the businesses on the ground floor, and I have a few little details. I didn't include the footage of me just pulling out items from Live Edit, but I grabbed a bunch of stuff, I went through it, and I just placed them down in the corner of the lot, and now here I am grabbing them and figuring out where I want to put them around the space. This is really just to make the lot seem like it really lives in this world, so it doesn't feel out of place. So it's part of the world, not working against the other spaces. I've got some trees and some outdoor seating, some of those like street side rubbish bins, street lamps, and then I place a couple of usable large rubbish bins at the back of the cafe as well, because there are, I think I included small rubbish bins in the cafe, in both of the employee only sections, but I wanted to put, and I did use the ones that sort of automatically just make the rubbish disappear, which I love those ones. They're so handy. But I put 2 large rubbish bins on the exterior of the build here at the back as well. Annoyingly, I wanted this build, like the front to be facing the canal, which is how I've built it. But then on the gallery, I think no, not on the gallery, in the world map view when you're going into the game, the view you get of this lot is actually the back. So it's the side, that doesn't have the entry to the buildings. It's really annoying. You kind of think that there would be some consistency across what the gallery shows versus what the map world shows, but anyway, it's fine. That's just a very, very small criticism. So the screenshots are coming up shortly. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up and subscribe. As I said, this is part 1 of 2. So keep an eye out for the part 2 where I will be finishing the 2 residential apartments above these businesses. In the meantime, you can catch me live over on Twitch 2 times a week. You can also catch me on all my other socials under KiwiSimsKate. Say hi, reach out, love to hear you, leave a comment. Take care out there. Bye.